The 2020s, they were going to be awesome. Everyone was like, we have 2020 vision of the future. But you know, in the time leading up to the decade, 2019 was a great year too. The economy was growing or something, I don't freaking know. I guess when you consider a graph like this where inflation is growing faster than I can beat Majora's Mask, and that we've only got half the wealth we did prior to the thing that happened in 2020, it's pretty obvious that it was a better time. There were no wars, PlayStation 5 was coming out, Mr. Beast was just starting to get big, the Acolyte wasn't released yet. It was a good year where we just got moving forward with the development of modern technologies. When you consider our technological advancements, especially with AI, 2019 feels closer to 2013 than to 2024. And without naming names, I happened to meet a tech company executive in Tokyo one night about 2 months ago. And believe it or not, the most alarming thing he told me was that AI is evolving so rapidly that the only thing that might stop it from becoming more terrifying than it already is would be a catastrophe affecting a large portion of civilization. I'll explore this further later in the video, but hearing it come from someone so high up was pretty alarming. But you know, as for the good times in the 2010s, I was still a little kid in school, college, whatever, studying while going back home every summer to relax at my folks' place with minimal bills to pay. Except for college debt. But we don't talk about that. While I sat with my Nintendo Switch in the middle of the night playing Breath of the Wild during summer vacation. I wanted to mention that many of us feel the last decade had something the current one lacks. Maybe this is more noticeable in my age group, but I hope to spark a discussion that helps others recognize the malaise of our current era. Regardless of how you feel about it, the state of the country is rough right now. And it's almost a parody of itself, it's gotten so bad. The economy is struggling, we're disillusioned with politics, AI is taking over everything, we're spending more time indoors than ever, and the nihilism of the era is affecting us more than the illness that kicked off the decade. I would always think, I can't wait to graduate so I can get an illustration concept job and work for Nintendo. Thinking about how in the 2020s we're going to be full of new technology, new job opportunities, that we'd all be cruising along in life. But little did I know that the 2020s were going to suck the big one. But why? Number one, the internet. So looking at everything in hindsight, 2019 was like a sneeze that never happened. You know when you're about to sneeze a lot and then nothing comes out? That's what 2009 going into 2020 felt like. But why have the 2020s just been rocking our shit for the past 4 years? It's hard not to see things through the nostalgia goggles. You know, it's pretty easy to fall into the, it was better before kind of mindset when you see photos at times when terms like S-Jack W or Eincel didn't exist yet. The one aspect of our lives which is increasingly and undeniably taken over everything is the internet. I mean, this is even before 2019, but consider the 2000s versus now. Assuming you remember the 2000s, I don't know, maybe you weren't alive yet, in which case, whatever. Just imagine for a second that it's 2005. Want to talk to your friend far away? You gotta ask your buddy for their landline phone. Okay. Want to watch a movie? Go down to Blockbuster and rent one to watch with your buddies. Okay. Want to make a video folks will actually watch? Know people in Hollywood who can make that shit happen. Okay. All that shit can be done online now with the press of a button, and no one's gonna tell you you can't. But here's the ultimate question. Now what? Now I'm bored. Do I just keep scrolling mindlessly to find my own fix, or do I look at the outside world for a second and remember the joys of real life? God, I really need to start drawing backgrounds for once.
You don't throw a 6-year-old into a sandbox and say, hey, you can only make poopy castles.
You know when you take wet sand and you just let it drip on top of...
So when you have something meant to connect people from a distance with such a level of addictive qualities, like stimulating your mind with just about anything it could ever want, eventually it becomes the only thing that connects you to other people, because no one can get off it, creating a virtual reality with different standards than the real world, and removing a lot of the incentive to participate therein, because the virtual one just feels better. Think of being on the train. Do you want to just sit there and be idle for a few moments, or do you want to watch YouTube? Well, if you want the answer, what are you doing right now? Oh, shit! I just broke the fourth wall! Well, anyway, so you're not incentivized to go out there and talk to people. Everyone's in your pocket. You know, look at your Instagram. You got hundreds upon hundreds of people following you. They're just right there. You can message them anytime you want, because they're just there conveniently whenever you need them. It's like you're collecting them like stamps. Let's be friends! Okay. Alright, here's my Instagram. Oh, okay, here's mine. Okay, bye! And they never talk to each other ever again. So apparently they've outfitted cows with Oculus Rift goggles to make them think they're in luscious green fields instead of grim slaughterhouses, resulting in creamier, better tasting milk. At the start of the decade, much like these cows, we were confined to our grim homes using the internet, a screen, more than ever before, so that we can escape the grim reality of the outside. I'll share a few anecdotes about that in a second, but personally, I think the 2020s are a decade of existential confusion, a culmination of the last century's nihilism. No one knows where we're headed or how things are progressing. We have 2 wars, meaningless jobs, little to live for. The only things left to satisfy our need for stimulation are our screens. Ironically, everything we have now was once anticipated during the golden age of humanity, from the 60s to the 90s. I mean, don't you think it's a little ironic that we were so excited to have phones where we can see people's faces in real time, be interconnected with the internet, and not have to live in a primitive analog world, only for us to realize that the cumbersome nature of those limitations made the experiences with them more meaningful. What was once special, limited, and treasured during said era is now something we yearn for and see only online from the quote-unquote comfort of our homes. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Like, seriously, how many people are going retro now, trying to emulate the feeling of VHS, even vinyl, just to get the tangible feeling from old media? It's like the grass is always greener. Back then we wanted the future, but now we want the past. Like, do we even know what we fucking want? Can humanity even make up its goddamn mind? It's just frustrating to be human sometimes. I could still hear my dad lecturing me about this. Well, you know, son, back then you had to buy a record, open it up and experience it just as the artist intended. Nowadays, I don't even understand the point of an album. You could just stream whatever you want by a zillion artists out there. You know, if Nirvana or the Smiths or Queen got popular today, they'd probably only have a fraction of their current following. Have you ever heard of Napster? Are you listening to me? I guess you look a little busy. What's on TV tonight? Netflix. Number 2, the post-scary virus economy. Alright, so if you're older than yesterday, you'll know that the turn of events which shaped pretty much the entire paradigm we're in now happened right at the beginning of the decade. So there I was, sitting in a strange position on my friend's couch, when suddenly he's coming downstairs and saying, "Hey, there's a fucking virus or something in China that's been going around." What goes around comes around. No, dude, seriously, it's coming. Oh, really? So's your mom. Oh! I was just thinking, yeah, right, whatever. Another virus, another swine flu, another cold, cough. Just stick some Tylenol. Let me ask you this. What's the difference between the flu and the new scary virus from 2020? And so the whole fucking world closed down. So 2 months later, my college was like, "Okay, kids, class dismissed. Go home. Oh, and by the way, that'll be $30,000. Leaving me with the option to either move into my friend's basement or back to Wisconsin with my parents. Long story short, I tried the basement for a few months, but being cloistered inside with another human being while sleeping in a boiler room isn't exactly the most ideal thing in the world. There was a noticeable shift in the feeling of things during the early 2020s. That was the first time that I'd recognized the internet really became the drug we use to numb the pain of modern life. Because, let's face it, I know too many people who hated their job, looked depressed, and were overweight, but seem to be doing alright thanks to the instant gratification of social media. But like I said before, there's just something that feels ethically wrong with priming people to get used to tech so that we can completely neglect the well-being and enjoyment of the real world. So for like 2 years, time completely stopped while the excitement of life dissipated into memory. Nothing really mattered at all in what felt like the most atomized period in all of human history. The only real coping mechanisms I had at the time were finding old philosophy books in my basement. And I went on a bit of a Schopenhauer binge because he reminded me of the doomer's modern plights. Life is a disappointment that reveals itself with age. And boy, was it a fucking disappointment. There was always an uncomfortable, almost mindless acceptance in the people around me. I just kind of saw my parents going through the motions every day and got depressed. And that's because older folks will never know what it's like to lose 2 years of your youth sitting inside as everyone and their mom lectures you about how this is good for society and that you're an idiot and misinformed for feeling upset about it. And not just my family, all of the older people already working their jobs, to embrace the new way of living life by isolating themselves at home and interacting only online, watching streaming services and embracing this atomization as the new norm. I couldn't tell if I was stubborn or if I hated it for good reason. In a matter of a year from 2019 to 2020, I went from playing with friends in a band, studying hard, or kind of, while getting excited for my future in my senior year of college, to once again sitting in my parents' house like a high schooler with absolutely no idea what the fuck to do next. No one would hire me. No one would hire you. And then they wonder why we have career gaps. And then these clueless boomers, so out of touch with reality, still love to tell you, yes, well, it says here that you didn't work from 2020 to 2022. Why is that? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it's because you weren't fucking hiring. Now, before Scary Virus, the average house was hovering in the 100,000s. Whereas now I'm pretty sure it's doubled. Tripled, quadrupled. Who knows? Who cares? I can't afford that shit. And not to mention, food prices are up 50% due to inflation. So when you think about the kind of things you're going to be eating these days, considering the cost of anything, you're like, today's dinner, I'll have water. But surprisingly, I was unemployed at the time. So in a sense, it was even worse. And I imagine there are many of you guys who are in a similar position, applying for jobs and getting fuck all for responses. So it was more fun finding an excuse to go outside and see what the real world had to offer. Like I said, it wasn't like I was living in the beautiful countryside. I would walk back and forth between the local dying mall and my house because there were a couple chain restaurants nearby I could sit and pretend to kill time at. But barring the occasional rainbow after the storm, there would be basically nothing worth remarking in those suburbs. I was always the only person walking down the street, past the Stroads, I mean. And it was just a reminder that modern society feels like a giant machine. And the way we're headed, it's a machine that is going to get bigger and bigger, which will surely distinguish any fire left in the human soul. I think our hearts desire adventure, meaning, something to look forward to in the future. And if I imagine what previous optimistic times must have been like, there had to be a sense of progress towards the future. Progress with the current status quo would pale in comparison to the potentiality for things to come. I always wonder, are modern people all right? Nowadays, according to the statistics, people are more sleep-deprived, depressed, less sexually active, less likely to marry, having fewer children, and overall are just more despondent than in any time in living memory. This signals pretty massive societal failure. Like seriously, I and many other people would like to support a family someday and just live a normal life. But when I'm still penny pinching after saving money since high school, and mind you, not just me, but most of my friends as well, it always seems like rich people are so accessible on the internet. You can see what they're doing online just by searching them up on the YouTube search bar. And you see people living these luxurious lifestyles that you know that you yourself are never going to see. I just bought a Lamborghini from my buddy in Silicon Valley. It's really strange for me because it seems like the gap between the hyper-successful and the average people in the lower echelons of the economic order is too big now. I stay up pretty late at night, sometimes asking myself questions about what the most important things are in life. And I think that the answer I most consistently come to is family and friends, and not just money. Like, for example, finding meaning in being useful to someone you love, whether it be protecting them, spending time with them to have a bonding experience, or working for the future of their well-being. Regarding the uber-rich people who have been hoarding the wealth of the world since the 80s, there are population crashes around the world at the moment, including Japan where I live. A variety of factors can be attributed to this, but I know for a fact that when you're barely getting by on a paycheck to feed yourself and maybe your girlfriend or wife, who in the right mind is going to bring a child in the world knowing that you won't have the means to feed the whole family? Various economic statistics indicate that people are under immense stress. If true, then the economy is failing to ensure people's happiness. Many Americans struggle to afford basic necessities, and Generation Z has 90% less spending power than previous generations, namely the boomers at the same age. Social mobility is almost non-existent, with 60% of college students coming from the top 1% of American families. Wages have stagnated. Inflation has eroded a quarter of our money's value, effectively taxing the poor while benefiting the asset-owning upper class. 2/3 of lower-class Americans' income goes to rent. The government claims low unemployment and high hiring rates, but these figures only reflect those actively seeking jobs or filing for unemployment, which doesn't paint the full picture. Only 10% of people earn over 6 figures, yet even they find it hard to live comfortably. Just look at this map. Is this map not insane? Like, look at California. Look everywhere, almost everywhere, it's over $200,000. Despite the American economy's expansion, whoop-de-doo, it does not positively impact the general population due to severe inequality. But it doesn't seem like the lack of family and child rearing are at all important to the rich elites. No. Maintaining their material wealth, boosting the economy that benefits their assets, and engaging in hedonistic pleasure seeking in the moment is a lot more important as long as they get to enjoy it now. Because it's more fun than considering the potential bleak future of the country and the consequences of millions living paycheck to paycheck for the next decade. I can almost hear them saying, let them eat cake. Number 3, AI. You know, kids, back in my day, we actually had to write essays in school. You couldn't just sit in front of your TV playing Mario Galaxy forever, because your dad would be like, all right, son, time to sit down and do your homework. Can't play video games until you get it done. Get her done, son. That's number 1. How many things can I rhyme with the number 1? You know, as an American, I think we have the right to own it. Back in the times when you had to sit in front of a computer, think and research and look things up on Google. Hell, even at that time, you had these damn boomers coming up to you saying, back in my day, we actually went to the library to research things because you couldn't just go on Google. Things really do go full circle, huh? People are just getting dumber and dumber because of technological innovation. Technology is getting smarter. Humans are getting dumber. I really wonder, is this some kind of ploy to render American society more stupid and increase the rate of intelligence decline? Is this the end goal of capitalism and the decline of middle America, all devised to make us stupider by the government? Okay. But AI in many ways is ruining the whole fabric of our society, and no one knows what to even do about it. The most that 99% of people can do is watch. Half the videos on YouTube now are just people going into ChatGPT, reading it aloud, and actually
having it read out loud,
and then posting it to the internet to get views. What even is content? AI can make everything from videos, arts, music, calculate things better than the smartest mathematicians on Earth. It doesn't even matter at this point. And meanwhile, half of humanity is just waking up, going to their job, and noticing these changes, probably in denial that this won't have any effect on them in the next few years. Life is beginning to feel less and less like a meaningful gift by God or the universe or however you want to put it, and more like a steady transition into a simulation in which everything subjective in nature is rendered obsolete. Bye-bye, humanities, as if you weren't already corrupt enough. No art, no literature, no human expression. If AI can just go ahead and do that, what's the point? Will there even be artists working for companies in the next few years? I mean, fucking look at Sora. Are you kidding me? You could just type something into it and it generates something that looks better than a AAA studio cutscene? Is this the direction we want? If AI can do anything, why should we even have to continue working in the first place? Shouldn't it be able to program super high-tech robots and get jobs done for millions of Americans? You can't just put an all-knowing robot in a room of people collectively working together, because if the robot can do everything, the people are just gonna go, hey man, what the fuck? Hey, thanks for watching. So this is my brief take on why the 2020s suck. You know, it's not just one thing. It's a cocktail of disappointments and harsh realities. Long Island iced tea? More like Long Island it sucks to be. If you don't already know what sequelitis is, you should check it out. I personally think more YouTubers should try mixing animation and video essays into one format since, you know, it hasn't been done in like 10 years. Anyway, if you're not already aware, I'm also a musician and make music, and it's called Noble Truth. I got plenty of kick-ass albums ready for you to listen to. I mean, if you want. So check it out in the description. Otherwise, scrotly mutt!